It's 7 o'clock. Now I'll call this session of St. Mary's City Council to order. Roll call, please.
Beth,
Here.
Coberman,
Here.
Freewell,
Here.
Willoughby,
Here.
Flagel,
Here.
Ulenhay,
Here.
Fitzgerald.
Here.
All rise and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You all received a copy in the minutes from the previous meeting. If there are no corrections, I'll accept the motion to accept.
So moved.
Ms. Willoughby, second by Mr. Fitzgerald. Council vote to accept, please. All yeses. I have nothing scheduled under petitions and communications, but Mrs. Shepherd has come forward to this evening. She wants to address council. Pat Shepherd, go ahead.
I'm Tricia Shepherd. I live at 917 Columbia Street here in town. The property next to me has been sold. The papers will be signed on the property tomorrow. But the people that's buying it wants to tear the property down, the house and the garage, and turn it into a parking lot. Our area is not a business area. It is all classified as residential. Is there anything that can be done about that?
You know that, Greg?
I can look into it. I'm aware of the situation, and I don't know about the parking lot. I'm aware of the situation of the house you're talking about and the people that are buying the property, and I don't know that that is their plan. So I think there's just been some issues down in the neighborhood with maybe some talk, but as I understand it, that's not necessarily their plans, but I can certainly look into it further.
Okay.
You're talking about the Minnick residents, right?
Pardon?
You're talking about the Minnick residents?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
That will, if they would turn that into a parking lot, that is going to depreciate everybody's property around our area. I've lived there since '84, and there's never been a business area, only but one. Bobby Ellis had it as a body shop, but he closed the doors.
Right.
And people around my house are kind of frowning on it
Okay.
because I don't know whether they're going to classify that, put that parking lot in there to store vehicles, or what they're going to do with it. Because he uses that as the block building as a storage building now.
Yeah, he works on vehicles in there. As I recall, my last conversation with them a few weeks ago, they were entertaining the thought of putting a driveway in for that home. So I don't know if putting the driveway in, they would tear the house down if they were going to put a driveway in for potential renters.
Okay.
But I can follow up on it. But when I talked to them a few weeks ago, they talked about just a driveway so that the renters would have a place to park off the street.
Okay.
Some of this could be fill related,
Okay.
so.
Okay. I didn't know what else to do, and I talked to my landlord. He said no way.
Okay, I'll look into it.
Okay.
All
Now,
right.
if you need who my landlord is, I've got his dad's address and phone number.
Okay. Alrighty, I've been to your house, I know Relive.
I know you are.
Okay,
Okay, thanks.
thank you.
That's all we have under petitions and communications. Moving on then to reports from city officials. We have the auditor's report.
Doug is not here tonight, he's sick, and so I'll go over it real quickly. This is September's report. I think it's important to note that this is the first time since April that our receipts have outpaced our disbursements, which I think is very good. If you'll recall, last month, August, we actually were $52,000 in the red. This month, our receipts outpaced our disbursements by $176,000. So I think that's very good news. It's a very good trend. Other than that, there's no other comments.
Any questions or comments from council? not, that takes us up to the treasurer's report.
Dan, I'm not aware of any additions to Dan's reports.
Again, any questions or comments from council? That leaves us with your report.
The one thing I'd like to add, Dan, is as far as the ash trees, we've taken down approximately 300 ash trees so far. We have about 150 more to go, and Dan Waterman, our contractor, is busy with taking the stumps down, so it's just been a long process. There's a lot of trees that we have to deal with. So other than that, I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Have they discovered what the problem with the clock tower is? Or
No.
what's going on with that?
No, we haven't. The vendor that we had up inside it is researching it, but they're well aware of council's wishes as far as restricting the hours, and that's something that's very doable. So I've received your emails back as far as time restrictions, and I think that this body can just decide when we want to do that. But we want to get it right. We want it to have the right time on all four sides,
Right.
and we'll restrict the hours that it rings, so that won't be an issue any further. But no, we have not heard anything back from the vendor.
Okay. Just curious. Any further questions or comments from council? Do you have one, Dan?
Greg, can we get a do not block alley sign by Guarneri's?
Do not block.
Yeah, because what's, you can about imagine what's happening.
Oh, it happens to me all the time.
Yeah, people want to get their mail delivered and people are getting,
And I'm there to pick up.
nothing against Guarneri's, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a great place, but.
It is. We ate there last
But
night.
I think we need to do something, and then there's a rental property there on the east side. It says tenant parking only. I've seen patrons go in there, so I guess it depends on
Yeah.
how
It's frustrating when you want to
far
go
they
there.
want to follow the rules, and there's always ample parking on each side of the street and around the corner.
Mhm.
It's not that far,
Yeah.
but,
And-
yeah, it's kind of a hassle for people who want to deposit their mail.
Yeah. In the wintertime, I know they move the furniture out of there. It's a little easier to park, but,
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about, so yeah, we can look into
I'm
that.
sure you do.
Yeah.
But, yeah, heard something about it. Okay.
Greg, I don't know if it was in this report, but you and I talked about decorating Memorial Park, this area out here a little bit more for Christmas
Mhm.
than we have in the past. How did that meeting go?
It went well. Susan and I, and we've hand-selected some others within the city to do it. As you know, the Foundry was very generous and gracious and have purchased a new nativity scene for us, which is very nice. We've also spoke with Mike Makeley at the Community Foundation. There are funds over there that are gonna be available to us for some lighting, so we've got our creative hats on, and we're looking at lighting for the canal boat, the bridge, the clock tower. We're even thinking about replacing our Christmas tree, one that's not split and goes in two different directions, so the meeting went well, and we have the funding for it. We're gonna use the resources that Mr. Makeley has available, and so we're excited about it, and we're even gonna try to get some sounds piped into the park for the season.
Great.
And we'll have restricted hours on that as well, so we don't get complaints about that. But it went well.
Good. I mean, I know that'll make some people happy that I talked to.
I know some employees that'll make happy.
Hey, John, I wanted to follow up on a question you asked me last week, and that was, or the last council meeting, about Walnut Street.
Yep.
I followed up with Craig Moore, both verbally and by email on it. The biggest issue they're having trouble with on down there is trying to find a vendor. And what they're talking about doing is, we have plenty of the limestone block to replace the old limestone curbs. So what they would do is pull the curbing up, and they would, reset it on probably it's a sand footer under there. I think that's where they did things, I think, back in those days. And then the approaches. So we're trying to get a separate estimate, but I told him, I said, have it to us no later than the street program when we go out for that. It'll be a separate issue from our street program, but it will be something that we'll address, and we'll probably call in the residents of Walnut Street and have another meeting with them and finish it up. But we are working on it. It's just that this year our engineering department was really slammed.
Well, I understand that.
Yeah.
Well, he also said that he had a new system.
Sure.
But I feel like we owe the people of Walnut Street an answer.
Me too.
Yep.
Me too. I agree with you.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Go ahead, Dave.
Are solid waste employees paid out of the general fund or not?
No,
Probably
sir.
not, right, okay.
Big choice.
I saw where you were going to interview for a position,
Yeah.
and I thought, well, I ask if we really need to fill that position.
Yeah, we
Thinking
do.
about the general fund again, but if that's neither
Yeah.
here nor there.
They're
if you need
paid
the
out of the
body.
refuse fund, which we talked about in the committee, which is
Yeah.
pretty healthy. And yeah, Doug takes care of the recycling. We have 2 crews, and I'm sure Mr. Flego could speak more to this, that we want to maintain that level of workforce. Currently, since we are short, we pull from the other departments. But the solid waste is paid out of their own fund, and then you've seen the resignation of Scott Cisco from General Services, and he's paid out of the street, the 202 fund.
Okay.
So neither one of those employees will impact the general fund.
All right.
Any further questions on the surface director's report? If not, that's all we have under reports from city officials. We'll move on to the reports from committees of council. First, we have the finance committee report. Mr. Buck.
Mr. Buck, Mr. Fitzgerald.
Oh, Mr. Fitzgerald.
How about if I take care of that?
Okay, take care of that.
I'll do the other one.
Okay.
Finance Committee did have a meeting on October 20th. And I'm going to defer part of the report to Greg. But overall, it was a meeting to discuss supplemental appropriations. We're a little bit earlier ahead than normally. We would do this in November, when we start checking based on the budget from 2014 and to finish up the year. And most of them were just normal appropriations. You see there a little list. Probably the biggest thing is the $188,000 for funds for electric through the end of the year. And the other big thing to note is there was a minus $300,000 in funds, which was basically the money where we thought we were going to be paying out approximately $400,000 to tear down the power plant. And the company that's doing that is actually paying us for the removal and getting rid of the recyclables, I'm guessing. But, so all in all, those things are there, and there's a few things that we need to add to the report that weren't here. I'm gonna let Greg talk about those.
I can address it.
Yeah, we need the ordinance, just address those and we take care of the ordinance. Okay. Any questions on the finance committee report?
I guess I have a little, on the $80,000 appropriate, or the supplemental for the electric, is that based on the new employees that we had hired earlier in the year and we're just making up for the supplemental now? And I guess that's the same question I have for the water plant wages.
Yeah, I can address it now, or I can go through it at the ordinance. whichever
Oh,
you
okay.
prefer.
Okay,
But I
I'm
can-
sorry.
Since it said, I've been asked, I'll be glad to address it. The $80,000 needed for the electric fund is for several reasons. One of them is, as I'm sure everyone read in the paper, when I funded the budget, I based it on 52 pay periods. The city employees are paid every week. Our weekly payroll runs about $95,000. I funded 52, and we actually have I funded 52 Fridays. We actually have 53 Wednesdays, and the payrolls run on Wednesdays, so it's simply something I was not aware of. So it's my responsibility. I should have been aware of it, but I wasn't. So we were a week short, so that's a very small portion of it. The biggest reason for the shortfall is a year ago we had 7 first-class linemen. Today we have 3. We had 1 resign, 2 transferred out, and 1's on extended sick leave. So that makes us, puts us in a bad position for our first-class linemen. The ones that have left, the resignation, and the 2 that have transferred out, we have replaced. But as you know, it takes 5 years to become a first-class lineman. They start off as groundmen, and then it takes 5 years to get to the top. So we are doing more with less right now. As you know, we're going through some major upgrades with electric distribution. We're doing that with fewer people. We've also tried to work with our industrial accounts. So we've tried to do some of these upgrades in the evening or on the weekends when their production levels are lower, so it's not such an impact on them. So that's caused us to have more overtime. And also, we do it a little slower, to be honest with you. We have these groundsmen that as we're going through this process, it really is a hands-on learning environment for them. And so I'm sure it's a little frustrating for some of Mac and the other two that are doing this because they just want to get it done. But it's important for them to teach these new guys how to do this. And it's good for us in a way because these guys will be in on the ground floor when this new distribution system is up and running. So we have a lot of projects. We have fewer people doing those projects. And we're doing some of those projects after hours to reduce the outage time or the impact it has on our customers. And we're trying to be very sensitive also to just our commercial accounts and our industrial accounts. So that's part of it. Yes, and we did add a crew based on the recommendation from Spectrum. We had 3 crews and they recommended 4. And although we would like to have 4, we're not there yet because of the movement that we've had. So our hope is that the employee that's been off on long-term sick leave is back in mid-November, but we just don't know. So.
Any other questions?
Oh, I'm sorry, the water question. The water fund, as you'll see, and as Mr. Fitzgerald said, within the appropriation, the supplement, there are request forms. At the Finance Committee, we went through each one of them that were approved. There were 3 that were not signed by Doug Reason, but he supported them. They just simply were not signed. The water ones were not signed because we were still trying to find money so we could reduce that water fund. The water fund was reduced by $53,000 in various account numbers, and we need that $53,000 for wages. Part of it is we had a death of an employee in March, and by contract we're required to pay out the estate, which we did. We're glad to honor that. The biggest part of it is an error that I had. I knew of our superintendent's retirement, Mr. Sprague. He had been with the city for a long time. His retirement payout was significant, and I simply did not budget it, so that error is on me.
That makes sense.
Jenna?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
No.
Don't be sorry.
Moving on then to Parks and Playgrounds. Try Mr. Buff again.
Okay, so there are no additions to this, but just to let you know what we talked about, we had a request by Bob Fitzgerald to work on diamond number 6. And so we had Craig Moeller come in and Greg Clark. They talked about what's going on with diamond number 7 right now. And diamond number 7 probably will take up the rest of this year. So we won't get to diamond 6 until maybe next year. And that's if funds are available as well. It could be as far out as 2016 to work on diamond number 6. So that's the basics of it.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
We had talked about Edwards Park back there, they were gonna do some additions to that, I don't think we got to that.
We have. It's been an issue for me. I've talked with these people since I started as the interim, and I agree with them that park has been neglected. Craig Moeller believes it's been neglected. There were some drainage issues. We think we have those resolved. But the playground equipment is just in bad shape. So
Next spring?
it is in the budget.
Okay.
Craig Moore and I have talked. We believe we have the drainage issues because you couldn't even get back there till like June because it was always so wet. So there are legitimate issues. The park has been neglected and we're trying to address it, but it is in the budget for next year.
Any further questions or comments? Okay then, that's all we have under reports from committees of council. Moving on then to readings of ordinances and resolutions. Number 3rd readings. Ordinance 2014-29, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service and Safety to enter into an agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation for the replacement of the concrete-filled arch structure known as structure file number 060067, August 29th, 0402, over the Miami Indian Canal in the city of St. Mary's. That is
Spring Street.
Spring Street.
Yes, sir. Again, the project is funded 100% by ODOT if we take whatever bridge they give us, but we'll want some input on that, so we'll meet, talk about that.
Okay.
And it's a 2019 project.
Motion passes emergency.
Motion by Mrs. Freewill to pass ordinance 2014-29 as an emergency, second by Mr. Fitzgerald. Comes to vote to pass as an emergency. All yeses, thank you. Next, under 30 readings, we have ordinance 2014-30. Emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Public Service and Safety to enter into an agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation to field pave invert of existing corrugated metal pipe structure known as structure file number 0601020, August 16th, 1076, within the city of St. Mary's. These are the culverts out by Larkin Park.
Correct.
Across-
And this is a
66.
2016 project.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Again, funded 100% by the state.
Any questions or comments from council? Now I'll accept the motion to pass as an emergency. Mr. Flegel, second by Mr. Uhlenhake. Council vote to pass as an emergency. All yeses, thank you. That's all we have under third readings. Under second readings. Ordinance 2014-34, an ordinance vacating a portion of Dyker Place right-of-way along OL number 34 to the city of St. Mary's. Everybody got the map in your packets to show you where that's at. If there are no questions or comments from council, this will be back for its final reading at our next meeting. So we have under second readings, under new legislation, we have ordinance 2014-35. Since this is monthly appropriations ordinance, I'll accept the motion to read under suspension of rules. Mr. Uhlenhake, second by Mr. Buck. Council vote to read under suspension of rules, please. All yeses. Ordinance number 2014-35, an emergency ordinance to appropriate monies for the deficiencies and to make other adjustments in the original ordinance number 2013-43 and any other appropriation ordinance for the fiscal year 2014 for the city of St. Mary's. There you go, Greg. Thank you.
It's all mine. What Mr. Fitzgerald said was correct, in that this ordinance typically comes later in the year. These things were kind of just trickling in, and they're a lot of work for Deb and for some of us, and for the or for the finance committee that has to come in. So we put a memo out to the department head, said, look, go through your budgets, make sure you have what you need for the rest of the year, so we can get this done, and we can not have to go through this process every month, it seemed like we were doing. My hope is that this is the last one we do for the year, but my gut feeling is we'll probably do one more, probably in December. But we should have a very good handle on it. So I wanted to get that out there. The second thing, although Doug is not here, Doug Reason is sick, I've had phone conversations with him and text messages. My hope is that you've had a chance to review the ordinance and you reviewed the attached request forms. As you'll see, he's approved and signed every one of those, and he supports the ordinance. So also, if you've had a chance to review Mr. Fitzgerald's report, it basically sums up very accurately what the need is. And I'll try to summarize as best I can, but of course be willing to answer any questions. I also want to note that there were some errors in the budget. Those errors belong to me. They're my errors. They should not reflect on the mayor or the auditor. These are my mistakes. If you look at it, the total request for the appropriation is $124,000. There's something new with this particular one that's never happened before since I've been here, in that we have a surplus in a couple of accounts where we want to put money back. As Mr. Fitzgerald indicated, we had budgeted $400,000 for the power plant. We would like to put $300,000 back. We'd like to have a cushion. We have about $80,000 remaining. We'd like to keep that cushion just in case there's some more asbestos issues in that power plant. We would rather deal with that abatement ourselves instead of having the contractor do it. But obviously, if those funds aren't used, they'll go back into the electric fund at the end of the year. Also, we had planned for maintenance work there. We obviously didn't need that. That was about $42,000, I believe. We're requesting that go back into the electric fund as well. The water fund, as I explained earlier, one of the forms that Doug did not sign at the time is because we were working on this. Jeff Thompson and I and Barb and Deb went through it. We were able to find $53,000 in various accounts that he did not need or could do without. We put that back into the water fund, and we're requesting to spend it in wages. So we're not spending any more money in water fund than what had been appropriated. We're just spending it in different accounts. I explained the shortage in the water fund. The employee death was something we had to deal with. Mr. Sprague's payout was simply an error on my part. I had not funded it. I was aware of it, but did not fund it. Moving on, the other retirements that affect the general fund. Our fire chief went out in March, and we had a tax clerk that retired, and we were notified in March. Those were two retirements that we simply were not aware of. We were already operating in the 2014 budget. When folks retire from the city by ordinance or contract, they're entitled to certain payouts, which we honor, and that caused a shortfall. We also hired early the tax clerk replacement, Hillary Seaver, we brought on board. The tax commissioner and I talked. We thought it was a good idea. Joe was an excellent clerk. She was an excellent trainer. We wanted Joe's replacement to be trained by her, and also it was during tax season. And she was hired on April 14th, and we figured if she didn't run out the door the first week that we had to keep her. And so we had extra costs for that we had not planned for, but she's been an excellent addition to the city workforce. The power cost, as Mr. Fitzgerald indicated, is $180,000. Our monthly bill to AMP is about $1.4 million. We spend about $16 million every year for power. The $188,000, obviously, the city will recover. AMP bills us, we pay the invoice, and then we pass that cost on to the customers. And so that's what that shortfall's about. Other than that, I know it's a huge ordinance, a huge supplement, so I'd be happy to answer any questions that you could have.
Any questions or comments from council? Guess not. If not, I'll accept the motion to pass as an emergency. Mr. Fitzgerald, second by Mr. Ulenig. Got the vote to pass as an emergency. All yeses.
Thank you.
That's all we have under readings of ordinances and resolutions. Under scheduling miscellaneous business and closings, we have a request for water and wastewater committee meetings, November 3rd at 5:15. And also Ms. Bowlby has asked that we schedule a street and sidewalk committee meeting to discuss the changes to the dog ordinance, scheduled back for 5:30. That works for everybody?
We're flexible at this time. We just, it's concerning the water plant itself. I mean, everyone's aware of its condition. The mayor and I have talked, and we think this is the first place we should start. Obviously, at some point, we'll need to talk with the finance committee as well, but everyone's read the correspondence from the EPA, and we just have to start. It's gonna be an ugly process, but we gotta get through it, and we just want to start with this. So we're flexible with the date and the time for both of those committee meetings.
I'm good with
Are you good with it, Greg?
Yeah.
All the problems on.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. There's nothing else coming for council this evening?
So just for my clarification, Dan, we'll do the water, wastewater committee meeting at 5:15, followed
Correct.
by a streets and sidewalks.
Followed by the street and sidewalk committee.
Okay.
Correct. Everybody clear on that?
5:30 then, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, around
approximately 5:30, depending on how long that first meeting. John?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Bell to adjourn, second by Mr. Flegel. Council vote to adjourn, please. All yes, thank you.